welcome to Marketing Without the Marketing. Really glad that you could be here. Last week I talked about having a special guest, and I'm delighted to invite Louie La Vella of La Vella Nightlife and Music Marketing here. Louie's got 20 years of experience in the entertainment industry, producing live events, doing online and social media marketing in the nightlife and music industry, producing concerts, festivals, nightclub events, but also as well some keynotes, panel discussions, hands-on workshops as well. And a couple of things that I like about Louie and why I wanted to have him on the show is that, well, one, Louie does events, which doesn't get covered a lot in digital marketing. And he has this sort of direct, practical, sort of cut right through it strategy. And some of these strategies are very counterintuitive, which I like. And though I tend to favor some counterintuitive strategies as well, there are some things about Louie's approach where, we have differing opinions. And I thought that this was a great opportunity to highlight a different voice in a different sector from an accomplished marketer like Louie. So, I hope that you'll learn something here. I'm expecting to as well. So, Louie, welcome. I'm really glad that you could join us.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for everybody out there taking the time out to listen. I'm excited to be on and share some of my opinions and absolutely some of my experiences as well.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, let's get right to it then. The first thing that I wanted to talk about, Louie, just in this sort of counterintuitive content marketing strategies, I'm really fascinated by the concept of using events in digital business, right? There's such an opportunity to create a community, give people a sense of belonging, and even a little bit of sort of exclusivity, if you will. But you don't hear a lot of this in the content marketing space. So for those people who are running exclusively digital small businesses, how do you sort of harness the power and philosophy of event marketing, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think events, like you just mentioned, is a huge way to connect with people. And we think of events as in-person kind of concepts, whether it's I'm building festivals or consumer trade shows, or in the business aspect, you're thinking of business conferences and networking events, and it's very face to face. And they're fantastic things to do. And I encourage anybody who has an opportunity to either be a part of one or build an event for yourself. It's strong. But you're right, in the digital sense, and even myself as an entrepreneur, I still need to get clients who are festival owners or business owners globally. So I need to create events that are digitally. And I think a lot of people out there are familiar with the webinar and things like that, where you're creating digital events. But there's something to be said about the user behavior of the tiniest event, which could just be a Facebook post and people conversing on that within the comments. If you have a small event, kind of mentality with each post that goes out, sometimes you can harness that, create more business, create more branding, or whatever the post goal is. But we don't have to always think about events as just this 30,000 person festival or, conference, right? We can kind of think from one end to the other. Mm-hmm. If you have that mentality of connecting with people and engaging with people, I think that's the core goal to have in mind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, I see that on your site in particular, and on your Facebook page. You use Facebook Live, for instance, and I really like the way that you do that. And even the sort of the new 360 feature. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because, when you think of the tool set that you use, that makes a difference to, you got to try to find your audience where they might be. So there's sort of the tool itself and what it can do, its capabilities. But also you're kind of looking for where your audience is. And that's smart for you since you do pretty well on Facebook. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And I think you hit it right on the head there of knowing where your audience is. So for me, Facebook is probably the biggest player, especially B2B and B2C. Then I expand from there into Instagram and Snapchat. Now I have Twitter and great amount of followers, and I have LinkedIn, but those two are sort of side businesses to where my audience is. My B2B people are obviously on LinkedIn and Twitter, but they don't play in that sandbox as much as Facebook, for example. So you're right to say, absolutely Facebook's big for me. And it's because I know where my audience is. So your audience could be on LinkedIn primarily, because it could be business owners and you could play in that sandbox, and you're in the groups and you're posting and engaging, and that's fantastic. So I do get the question of, which is the best social media platform? And the simple answer is where your audience is. That's
Right.
really the answer, right? But within those platforms, there are a lot of tools. Like you mentioned, Facebook Live's obviously a big tool to utilize. And Periscope was absolutely large for me when I did play around with that platform and it was connecting to Twitter. But since everybody's on Facebook, for me, Facebook Live was a great tool that they added on. I've already pre-built a large audience on Instagram as I was growing Snapchat. Obviously, Zuckerberg came out with some copycat features on Instagram, but what that has done for me is not have to worry about another platform for my B2B people. They're already on Instagram and I can utilize those tools. So you really have to know where your audience is. And speaking about the 360 video on Facebook Live, I see a lot of people just posting on Facebook Live and it's sort of the talking head, but there's not a lot of engagement in the comments.
Right.
And to me, why don't you just have a polished video and post it, right? Instead of going live. Now, I get the fact that Facebook is favoring live in the newsfeed, so I get that part. But sooner or later, that's going to change where it's just the same as maybe some of the other post types. And you may not be used to using Facebook Live the way it's supposed to be used. As an example, I work with festivals and I work with nightclubs and whatnot, and they're doing a Facebook Live of their nightclub DJ playing. And, the audio sucks, the visuals suck. And I'm thinking, what is somebody getting out of this other than a beautiful picture or a completed 2-minute after movie of this, the girls dancing in slow-mo? That sucks me in visually. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to this really bad garbage Facebook Live just because Facebook Live is a tool to use. I would rather see the behind the scenes. Oh, hey, here's the big name DJ behind the scenes. Do you want to do a Q&A for 3 minutes? He's about to go on stage. That to me is content for Facebook Live. So I think people have to really utilize the tools properly. And, for the 360 video, it's just a very cool new thing that people are just paying attention to because it's different. So I did a couple of videos while I was in Las Vegas and I grabbed my 360 video camera. We drove up and down the strip, but you could see obviously the big hotels and stuff. But what we did was we had a music marketing conversation. So it was interesting to actually listen to and be a part of while you're messing around, moving around your phone or your cursor to look at all the big sites and the big hotels in Las Vegas. So it was interesting, but I'm utilizing that differently, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like the concept of trying to get some engagement out of it, because you're right. Otherwise, why not produce something that's a little bit more controlled and polished and all that? Because certainly you have the tools that give you the ability to do that. But in essence, you're going to create an event, right? You're going to have people there who are the right people, because they're the ones who are interested in what you're talking about. And you have a sense that they might interact or that you're going to encourage them to interact. How do you do that?
Yeah. So let's say we use the example of we're going to do a Facebook Live. So I'm going to be on Facebook Live and I'm going to talk about a certain topic. Let's say it's launching your indie artist, whatever song, right? I would love to do a little bit of a pre-launch idea, almost like you teased the audience here today, in a previous podcast on Louie's going to be on and we're going to talk about this. So I would do the same thing on Facebook or Instagram or even on Twitter, wherever my audience is, saying, hey guys, I'm going to do a Facebook Live on Friday at noon. This is what we're going to talk about. I might encourage people to even send me questions already so that they're excited to have their question answered and want to be on that Facebook Live. And I'm going to encourage people while they're on Facebook Live to ask questions there. It's not going to be me just spewing information. I actually going to answer some of the pre-questions, but also read the comments and go back and forth, which is going to be great. So I think that pre-promotion, and it's kind of taking the event marketing idea. I don't just drop tickets the day before the event, right? We have all the, depending on how big the event is, I may do months and months worth of promotion. Then tickets go on sale. Then the event happens, So I'm going to think of my little Facebook Live, talking head is going to be similar on a very small scale. And that's going to encourage people.
Yeah, I love that. That makes perfect sense. And I've done that with Periscope, for instance. Like I'll just set up a tweet that goes out maybe a couple days before, then one a day before, and then the day of, 2 hours before, an hour before, and then 5 minutes before, and then when you go live. And that's all easy to do, where you can set that up, cue it, so that you don't have to worry about it and overmanage it. But that can make a big difference to attendance.
And you might even utilize the ad system to promote those pre-event posts. So you may be tweeting, but you may use the Twitter ad system to actually get it even further than your organic reach. Same on Facebook, that kind of idea. So, you want to give them the experience of when you're on this Facebook Live or when you're on this Periscope, here are the things you're going to learn, or here are the things you're going to see, that kind of idea, and get them really involved and excited to be a part of that. And again, you can utilize a bunch of tweets or Facebook posts or Instagram, whatever it's going to be. You may even want to throw a couple dollars towards it,
Right.
and advertise it to a larger audience than just organic. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. I mean, the whole idea of these events or these things that you're trying to do is to, create sort of a community, create a sense of scarcity, exclusivity. And, I think that sort of contributes also to an impression of you, the brand, as well. Would you agree?
I do, yeah. And a lot of that is definitely brand awareness building. You may not be doing any hard sell at all. You may just be giving information back in brand awareness.
Right. And also keep in mind, you're now seen as someone who is out there talking about this, and then there's your opportunity to show your expertise and say, wow, all right, look, this guy knows something about this, and also you get to highlight a philosophy, an impression of you as well, which is really important.
I agree. And the funny thing, we probably hang around the same groups of people on Facebook groups and whatnot. And we see each other doing that, webinars or Facebook Lives or putting long form posts, like a lot of ideas, great ideas. And we forget that there's a whole almost general population that just wants to learn that doesn't do that.
That's right.
So, I forget that all the time, and I put out some, maybe a good but basic, tool. Hey guys, on Facebook, this is what I did and it worked really well. And my musician fans or my nightclub owners, oh my God, that's fantastic. And it's just the basic something. I don't know what it would be. But we forget that the general population is just trying to learn, and they get excited over the littlest things sometimes, and it's great to give information. So when you're giving out that stuff, it's not like you're giving away the farm and nobody's going to hire you type of idea. They're very excited to learn even the littlest things because they don't play around with it like we do all day, every day.
That's right. Yeah, they just want a practical strategy that they can implement, try it out. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, move on to the next thing. And that's really, we often forget that, I think. So, all right. Well, Louie, it's a pretty good lead in actually, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about and where our opinions might differ, was just, I love your sense of, in talking about email versus social and, going against all of the blogosphere and some of those digital marketing experts that you talked about before. I mean, you've said that social might actually be better than email, but that kind of goes against all the conventional wisdom, which is kind of cool. And with all the data that we have on conversion rates being much higher in email than social, can you give us your perspective on this? I mean, is there something in your event marketing background that helps you see this a little differently than the current thread that's out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love going against the grain, and not just to do, but to test things that are not being done. So as you mentioned, I had a blog article and a mini podcast on why email marketing, is not as strong as social media anymore for me. And, it causes a little bit of controversy, but what I'm trying to do is show what I have tested in different demographics and whatnot. And that's working well, just so that it can get out there, that people can realize there are different ways to do your marketing and to get leads in, but also to spark a little bit of excitement on when that cliff happens, perhaps, and email marketing really doesn't work for your business or that guy's business, or they have what, this crazy guy Louie mentioned something, whatever, a year ago, 2 years ago, months ago. Now I maybe can test these things out, or to try and test them now so that you can bridge the gap when that cliff happens. I mean, we all know SEO is a really big thing, and not to say it's not now, but people are on social media more than searching on web for some demographics. Again,
right.
Not for all demographics, but SEO may not be the strongest player. Of course, Google has changed their algorithms constantly. And, speaking of algorithms, Facebook changes their algorithms constantly as well. So when we say, pictures do better with links in them, all of a sudden they change things and it's Facebook Live, right? But the nice part about an article like that is I do a lot of user behavior studies. So my demographics when I'm working with festivals or musicians are Generation Z and young millennials. And I can see when I'm trying to sell tickets and we have thousands of emails where sales are coming in. I can see when I'm building campaigns and getting the user experience and the excitement of going to a festival. All of a sudden we get them in a Facebook Messenger conversation and we can look at where the click-throughs are coming through. They're buying. So when I say that now, and marketers maybe of our age and have articles out there are saying, well, email stronger. What happens in 2 to 3 years when these younger generation are now the buyers for their demographic
Right.
and their user behavior is different? I noticed when Instagram came out, there was no clicks on Instagram. You can't click out and do anything. That changed their user behavior. I noticed when Snapchat came out, I noticed a ton of Instagram profiles that were millennials all of a sudden switched to private profiles because Snapchat is a private closed network, right? I noticed these user behaviors. So I don't want to be general in saying, oh, email is not working, but I do want to put it out there on, I've done some great tests and sold 20, 30,000 tickets to events and not based on email marketing. I still tested it and it was very low on my scale of success. So to keep an eye on up and coming, tools and up and coming concepts in case email marketing stops working.
Yeah. And there's two things I really like about that. One is it goes back to the very sort of durable content marketing tenet, which is know your audience and where they are, right? So really, really important. And then just building something that has some longevity to it. So in other words, sort of, I kind of hate the term future proof, but the idea that it doesn't really matter where your audience will be, that might change, and being prepared for that is really a good thing. But you're seeing these differences now between sort of millennials, Gen X, boomers. Do you see that being different then with Gen X and boomers, or is that the wrong sort of way to segment the audience, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like the Gen X and millennials aren't even giving me the email as much. They follow on social media, they engage on social media. Their email box is maybe full, or maybe it's not full because they're not giving anybody's emails, but it's just not strong enough. When I go to the boomers or Gen X, a lot of the times I'm getting that spam email. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a separate email for spam, right? So why do we have that? Because we get lots of spam. So nobody can tell me, well, email is 100% proof still. When you have a spam email, do you know what I mean? Like it just makes sense that may stop working. So it might work now for certain demographics. That's totally cool. I get that. And I'm not saying that stop using email today. And of course, we're worried about Facebook taking away our accounts. And then all of a sudden we don't have Facebook and we got nothing. But that's the same for everything. What if email stops working? What if Aweber or Infusionsoft shuts your account down because somebody flagged it for spam too many? Do you know what I mean? Like there's different worries to have. And we can't just worry about Google's algorithm. And so let's not go do SEO. We really have to know where our audience is. So, as an example, I get very high open rates and delivery rates, even to my musicians and stuff. But still, I look at the amount of effort and money it takes to do a campaign, get their email address, then send out the email. I have 30% open rates, which is awesome in my industry, and then like 18% click-through rates. And I'm thinking, all that work for a guy to finally click through and maybe still doesn't buy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm putting way too many steps in there. And it could be spam email. So the open rates is a spam email and they're not even looking at it. So I'm trying to look at that huge picture and then putting this article out just to drive a little bit of thought on keep an eye on what's up and coming and keep an eye on your own numbers in case you find that cliff coming and then you're going to drop off that cliff and you don't want that.
No, that's right. And here's the other thing about this too. Usually my tactic on this is to start with social as the awareness stage, the sort of handshake, and then build the trust enough for someone to give you the email address. And now this is theoretically a closer relationship. But think of what you just said. When people have a spam account, right? For me, I use my Hotmail account for that. And really what they're telling you at that point is, I don't trust you. I want the thing that you have, so give me your download, but I'm going to give you a fake address because other marketers have made me not trust you. And that's unfortunate, but you're absolutely right. That happens. And the cool thing is, to go back to the SEO thing, is just that you have all these little footholds on the web. So if you set up in Hootsuite for, to post to your Google Plus page or to Twitter. All those little posts are hooks in the web that, should be keyword rich, and you don't want to go overboard with that, obviously. But all of those provide different potential entry points for new prospects and or customers. I mean, to me, that's another big reason to just be out there in social and take it seriously. It's just for the SEO aspect as well. And email, even if you use MailChimp, Aweber, Mad Mimi, even with a web view, I mean, that's one piece of content, whereas social can be literally, dozens or hundreds a week.
Absolutely. And you're so right to warm up your audience. And then you'll probably get a good email and somebody that actually wants to hear from you, right?
Right.
And to me, again, depending on your audience demographic. So I've noticed that certain demographics, if they're young musicians and I want to give them marketing advice, they're already following me on Facebook. So to them, they don't, even though they want to hear from me, and that's probably why my open rates are large, they want to hear from me on Facebook. Post the video there, Louie.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Give
us the content there, Louie. Why do I have to be in your email funnel? So you really have to study, right?
And it really, it's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not up to you or me. It's up to them. What they want is, I mean, everything that I try to do and try to teach my clients and my students this as well is you are here to serve. Good marketing is about serving, and it's up to them. Like, sorry, that's just the way that it works, right?
It's true. I sat down with a nightclub client, potential client, a few months back, and I don't take on too many nightclubs anymore because I'm doing festivals and record labels. So I'm very busy with a lot of other type of projects, but it's a large venue. So, and smart people. So I have no problems talking with them. And they were doing the same, older guys. And I don't understand why they want to message me on Facebook. I don't want Messenger on my phone. Why can't they call the phone just like back in the day to book their bottle service? And my reaction was, they don't give a about what you think.
That's right.
That's
I mean? Right.
You need to play where they're playing. I get it. Things change and it's not the same. But they don't care. Like, you can force them. The only way to do it's on phone. They just may not call you. How many people use the phone as opposed to Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, maybe email? I mean, my minutes are down significantly because I hardly use the phone anymore. It's just businesses change. And you're absolutely right to say you have to know what they want, play in their sandbox, and be happy with it.
No, but by all means. And here's the thing. When it comes down to it, whether it's email or social, what we're talking about is having the right person there. And that brings me to a thing that, you've talked about in your post, and I've seen on your podcast. It's about audience size and influencers, right? Not to get hung up on the size of the audience. Oh, I have X thousands of Twitter followers or Facebook likes. That doesn't really matter. I mean, to me, I'm a strong believer in finding the influencers. Like, if you can get the right people and bring them into the fold, they're the ones who are going to amplify your efforts. So can you talk about how you approach influencer marketing?
Absolutely. I like you mentioned, I like to dig a little bit deeper on who the influencer is and what actual influence power they have. It most of the times does not mean the largest amount of people, but sometimes, and you might be alluding to one of the blog articles I wrote where this small person had 100 and some odd fans and was a fan of one of our trade shows, consumer shows, and they tweeted out to a large influencer, "Hey, are you going to be at the show?" We were not fans directly with the larger influencer. The smaller one, I don't know how, either was timing that large MTV person saw the tweet, or whether those two were fans. But that larger influencer caught wind of it and then said, "Oh yeah, absolutely, I need to go to this show." And then they came and took pictures, and they're a celebrity, and it was a big deal. And by no doing of ours, just by having the right timing, but by looking at the right connection, right? There's a little matrix involved in who's connected to who and why and how. I've noticed so many, connections with celebrities, and they're a friend with this random person that has like 200 Twitter followers, but there might be best friends for all I know. And they're not in the spotlight. And if you connect with them, maybe they connect with Lady Gaga. Do you know what I mean? So you really have to look at who their fans are, what influence does everybody have, and then try and decide who's best to utilize, right? And it has to connect with your brand too.
Well, yeah, and there's the thing that as far as counterintuitive strategies, I think folks who sort of think of business as, I don't know, you got to try to amplify your reach, and you got to try to find those folks who have a big audience, get those folks to vouch for you or to amplify your message, and really. The web changed all that. You don't need that anymore. I'll take somebody as an influencer who has amazing influence over 10 people over someone with 100 times the reach, but not the closeness with the audience, right? Because if that person has very strong influence over those 10 people, that's so incredibly valuable, because now if you get them on your side by providing them value and doing all this stuff that you do first to provide the value, I mean, they can now have some real power over this seemingly small audience. But you know what? The web makes that so, you just got to replicate that. And in digital, you can do that, which is very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're right again to say, the quality of the fan or the influencer is going to be huge compared to just the broadcast. It might be an old school mentality to go the widest net. Again, we used to write checks to radio. They hit a wide net that's sort of in your demographic, either locally or the sound of music that they're playing, or it's an AM station, that kind of idea. And it's wide, or we did newspaper. It's all of the area, or television, and it's a wide net. But social media has changed the game quite a bit, where you don't necessarily need to go the widest. If I do a Facebook ad, I'm not going to target everybody in the United States. I'm going to be very targeted.
That's right.
And that's extremely important. For musicians, there was a great article by Kevin Kelly, I believe it was, the 1,000 True Fans. I'm not sure if you.
Of course, yeah.
And that's great for musicians to realize I don't need the major label deal. I can make decent money without having the part-time job, doing what I love, with literally 1,000 fans that are willing to pay. Like his article mentions, 1,000 raving true fans will probably spend about $100 on you in a year with, merchandise or one show and a couple albums, and you'll make $100,000.
Yeah.
And that's generalizing, but it's very true to think about. You don't need, we better sell 200 million albums and Sony Music, and then you still complain about not making money because the deal is lopsided. Things have changed drastically, and I think the more we realize that, the more excited we get.
No doubt. I love that concept. I actually go back to that post, maybe once a year or so. I have this saved just as a reminder, because, in everything that I do or teaching my clients, that's a really important tenet. Now, Louie, I wanted to get in one more counterintuitive strategy, because one of the things that I love that you've talked about as well on your site is working with competitors to share audiences. Now, for years and years and years, 17 years to be specific, I was in the publishing industry, mostly at large corporate houses. And this concept of working with competitors is absolutely anathema to the way that they think of this, right? But I would love to hear your take on this, because in the digital space, I've really only seen this in affiliate deals. And of course, in brick and mortar businesses, it's certainly a much bigger deal. I had Laura Nunemaker on the show, and she talked a lot about how to draw people into from the local area into her cafe, and how it helped all the local businesses, hers included. And I'll leave a link to this in the show notes. But can you give us your approach to this, and some ways that this has worked for you as well?
Absolutely. I think that there's different levels of competition, and when, even if I look at the nightclub and bar industry, and there's, every town has that entertainment district where it has a whole whack of them in one area. Yes, they're in direct competition with each other right across the street or beside each other, but I see them in certain respects banding together and working to bring traffic to the area. And those areas are nice and hot nightlife areas. So there's nothing wrong with working with the competition in certain respects. And as another example, and bringing up either musicians for myself and my business, or other nightclubs, I have a Facebook group that has a lot of them in there. They're competition because they're nightlife and giving out ideas to each other, but they might not even be in the same city now. So now they're working together to share what's working in other towns, or share what's working as a producer. So I think to close yourself in, shut yourself off from doing anything with competition, or even not looking at what the competition is doing, is extremely dangerous for your business.
Right. The thing that's kind of interesting though is in actually working with them, is sort of sharing strategies, and the affiliate deals can be really powerful. Have you had any experience with using affiliate deals?
Yeah, absolutely. I put out a few ebooks years ago. Again, I like to study internet marketing because it's very digital, obviously, and I can bring that to my industry. And having affiliates on board is it just they're like influencers, right? Like we spoke about earlier, but they can give you long-term and wide reach, but in a specific target. I like to think about promoters in a nightclub as little affiliates, right? Where they go and they try and build up a little list to bring into the nightclub or sell tickets, and they get their commission off of it. So I mirror what the internet marketing world is doing with affiliates and bring that over to the nightlife business and festival business and create that same structure. I like using Eventbrite for my events, and I know there's a couple other that do the same thing where I can create affiliate links. Guys, I know you don't have hard tickets in your hands because this is a fully digital sale, but go on social media and use your link. I can track it and I'll pay your commission with that respects. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great thing to utilize, making sure that you choose the right people and making sure you have a setup process so you're not chasing people for dollars. And I know in the internet marketing world, it's usually all done with a great system and PayPal will pay out. But in brick and mortar, you can give out flyers to people. You can give out, customer retention type of ideas and pay them or give them points towards coming back or towards sharing the message. And that's a great concept.
Yeah, I mean, all those things that help sort of incentivize people to, to come back until, at some point they become someone who trusts you as a brand. And I love the sort of bridge that you've created, or at least in concept, right, between digital and then in the real world. And I just think that's good, just to be constantly experimenting. And I mean, you've been at this for a long time and in what's considered a very challenging sector. So is there anything else that you might like to share, to help our listeners here build their audience, or maybe some pitfalls that you've seen in your experience, just so we can, learn to avoid the landmines, or any other things that sort of go against conventional wisdom?
Yeah. Always be listening to people. Either go on Twitter and search for keywords that people are talking about, maybe your business, kind of concept or topic, jump in on the conversation. As a quick example, actually this weekend, twice this happened to me where I'm involved in all these, social media, Facebook groups, and just generic, has nothing to do with music marketing. And I just check in every once in a while to see what's going on and put my 2 cents in my experience, which is great. And I contribute to the group. But twice this weekend, I jumped into a group at like 1 a.m. as I'm lying down with my phone, just doing a little bit of research and reading some blogs before bed. And both times in 2 different Facebook groups, not music related, asked about, hey, I'm in a band. Does anybody have any, experience promoting on Facebook? And I jumped in and had a conversation with them, and it was great timing. But, we're all involved in so many pages. We have so many friends. We're in so many groups. We don't get those notifications. And I thought, man, if I missed these, I would have missed out on some clients. But I would have missed out on helping them as well. We get so involved in what's my next post going to be, and I have to put it out, and then watching our own post, that we forget all the other areas that free business is. And, with that said, putting out posts, we got to be careful with automation too. Yeah. That happens a lot as well. We're automating everything just because it's a lot of work and we want to automate. There's nothing wrong with automating, but don't set it and forget it. If you set it out there and you put it out there and somebody's responding and you're not there, then what's the use of putting the post out? Now it's a hard sell. It's a push out. There's no two-way engagement, and you're pretty much going to lose not only your brand, and you're going to lose probably the client as well. This has happened so many times on Twitter.
Think of that. That actually has the potential there to make you look worse than if you didn't do anything at all.
You have to be careful. Yeah.
Yeah, you really do. There's no doubt. So, all right. Well, Louie, it was great to have you on the show here. I just think these were some great insights, applying your experience in your own sector. And I always say this, that, everyone is different in the content that they produce, the audience that they serve. And it's one of the fun things about what you and I both do in serving our own clients. So with that, it says, look, this strategy, your strategy, my strategy, that's not going to work for everyone. But hopefully what we've done here is just given people a starting point, try some things out that they might not have tried before. and go from there. And so I really appreciate you being on. And can you tell us, if you don't mind, where our listeners can find you if they want to learn more about your approach and read your articles and such?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for that. Obviously, I'm all over social media, and of course, my blog and my podcast, and links to podcasts I've been on are on my website. And all of that is my first and last name, Louie La Vella. So it's spelled LouieLavella. So LouieLaVella.com or at Louie La Vella on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Snapchat and all those fun places. So I'd love for anybody to read and enjoy, and definitely reach out to me. I love helping.
Oh, good. All right. Just for your convenience, everyone, I'll leave a link in the show notes so that it's real easy for you. And for those of you who have come to hear Louie on this show, this is Marketing Without the Marketing. You can find this on controlmousemedia.com or on iTunes. So really glad to have you aboard as well. So Louie, thank you again. And to the audience, thank you. And we'll see you next week.